My name is Jacqueline with Google Plus. Show business, tech business, one and the same. So I have two amazing guests joining me today, Susan Ferraro and Melissa Burkheimer. And today we're going to be talking about blocks. But before we get to Melissa and Susan's introductions and backgrounds, I just wanted to share why this particular topic came up. So I was reading a book called The Artist Way, and there was a quote that really stood out to me, and it said, "In unblocking others, we unblock ourselves." And I think a lot of the times as professionals and entrepreneurs, we see what other people may be doing online, we see what other people may be doing offline, and we start to perhaps compare ourselves or feel like we're never going to get the answers or whatever X, Y, and Z may be. We may not even be aware of blocks that we have. So Susan is an expert on the law of attraction and being able to have a blissness, as she says. I love that. Melissa is a mompreneur and marketer extraordinaire, and I am a performing artist turned consultant and entrepreneur. So we wanted to basically share our experience with our own personal blocks. We wanted to share our experience with helping our clients unblock themselves. And ultimately, we're here to answer questions you may have as we get towards the end of the Hangout. So without further ado, Susan, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
Give us a little bit of a background on yourself and how you first started working in the law of attraction field.
Okay, so oh no, I'm echoing. Hang on a second.
Sure.
Okay, hello? No,
Yes.
I'm gonna maybe I should leave and come back.
We don't hear an echo on our end.
I hear it.
Hello. Oh, you do?
Hello.
Hello.
It's still echoing here, but it's slower without the headphones. So if I talk slowly,
Okay.
I think we can do it. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I think it comes from Jacqueline.
What'd you say?
It's coming from Jacqueline. Jacqueline is echoing. So if you don't have a mic, Jacqueline, or headphones, that's probably why it's we hearing her twice.
Okay, yeah, I hear you through her.
That no echo, it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. Okay. So anyway, law of attraction, how I got into it. I was always a very imaginative child, and I was actually using these tools very early on without realizing what I was doing. And about 20 years ago, I found a book called Creative Visualization, and it kind of put a name to some of the things that I was doing. And I grew up with a younger sister who was always like, I was the one that always got what I wanted. That just reinforced my belief that I would get what I wanted, and so I would keep practicing and practicing. And once I realized that it was actually something, there was a name for this, I just dove into research about it, and it just became a passion of mine. And my former career, I've been doing this now just under a year, and my former career was in the fashion industry. I was a designer for many years. But I was always seeking freedom above anything else, and I was very creative, and I was creating and recreating my lifestyle many times over. I used it for success, I used it for money, I used it just for unique situations, anything. It was part of me to just kind of design what I wanted to do and then step into that. And the more that I learned about the law of attraction, the more it excited me, because that we have this power, and then I began to become very passionate about it and wanted to show other people how they could use it too. So what kind of drove me into what I'm doing now was, and I call it a blissness, because what I do is help aspiring entrepreneurs create the lives that they want around work that doesn't feel like work. That's why I call it a blissness. So thank you. I realized that I was into that when at my last job I started kind of just naturally coaching people to leave the company. Like, people were quitting, people were, looking for other career paths, and I realized that's really where my heart was. And so I combined the two, and that's where I am now.
I love it. And we're going to get into the definition of the law of attraction after we have Melissa introduce herself, because I feel like there's a lot of people who might think it's one thing, but to really like define it would be really helpful, I think. So, Melissa, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with like the marketing and design and all of that.
I actually went to school, my major for design. My major was called graphic journalism, which means I was educated partly in the design building and part in the communications building. And right out of college, I stayed where I was because I had some other circumstances like, you know, kids and a mortgage that were more important to me at the time. So I stayed there for almost 10 years, and now after about year 8, I started to get an itch to be creative. So I printed like 3 different kinds of business cards. I started networking wherever I could to pick up anyone who would pay me to do some graphic design work for them. And then I landed a permanent gig as a social media manager for a local business. And from here on then, I quit my job and I started doing freelance design work and the social media consulting. In the last 9 months, I've sort of transitioned from social media consulting to more doing design and project management and creative direction for people like James Wedmore, who have like a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and they need someone to come in and make sure that stuff happens so that they can have a life. So that's sort of where I'm at right now, and I've actually dealt with a lot of blocks because I'm going from like, I'm totally changing my business, and it's been a roller coaster, but I love it.
Well, and both you and Susan said a word that perked up my ears, and it was transition. And so one of the things that I want to just emphasize and reinforce is that throughout our entrepreneurial journey or our professional journey, and I know Brian can speak to this, Julian can speak to this, transition is something that we need to have in our vocabulary and we need to adopt, because the path isn't just a straight path. For myself, for those of you who aren't aware of my background, I actually went to school for the music business and grew up singing and dancing. So I thought I was going to like come out here and revolutionize the music industry and bring back real talent. No disrespect to like these, you know, Jessica Simpsons and stuff, but the internet came around, and all of a sudden we were taking in music via digital devices, and all these CDs and hardcover CD covers that I had grown to love completely went out the window. So that first helped me really start to adopt, fly by the seat of the pants, if you will, and transition, and that's how I got into the digital space. And personally, with where I'm at right now, my business is undergoing a transition because I have been consulting in the social media space, the community management space, really from like a street team marketing and product intensive side, and I'm now going into coaching and consulting. So I've had my own blocks myself with regard to putting myself out there. So Susan, the law of attraction. What is the law of attraction? Break it down for us.
So, okay, the law of attraction is around the concept that like attracts like. So say everything in the universe has a vibration, and including our thoughts, okay? Your thoughts create your beliefs. A belief is just a thought you keep thinking, right? And that creates a vibration, which then also creates your emotion. From your emotions, come your actions or reactions or response in the world, and that creates your reality. So if you want to, a lot of people dive right into action without getting situated on their thoughts first. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's why we're having this Google Hangout for sure.
So what I help people do, what I do myself, is when I have a desire, whether it's something little like a parking spot or a whole new career and lifestyle, I make sure that all of that is aligned. So when you have all of that aligned, some people call it congruence, then that is when things will manifest. And it really, belief is at the root of that.
Got it. And who would you say is like the grandmother or the grandfather of the law of attraction? Who's the person that you go to as perhaps like one source, if there are many?
I think there are many. Abraham Hicks, through Esther Hicks, is definitely a valuable source. But I also am a big believer, like I kind of figured things out for myself a little bit because I was very curious as to why it worked sometimes, why it didn't work other times, and that's kind of how I came to realize that it was expectation, it was belief. Was when I hit expectation or belief about something, that's when it manifested. So a lot of people think, oh, if I am just joyful and grateful all day long, I can have all the money in the world. You will feel good. There, I can list hundreds of reasons why you should be grateful and joyful, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your bank account is going to grow. And you could look around, you know, not everyone who is rich is joyful or grateful for it. And not everyone who is joyful or grateful is rich or abundant or necessarily gets what they want. So what was that missing piece? And that was belief. And when I finally realized that, that's what I started working on. So gratitude and joy, they're awesome. So they help lower the resistance to whatever it is you want. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be grateful or practice feelings of joy. You absolutely should. But if you don't have that belief, that unwavering faith that you deserve it, and it doesn't even have to be that you believe it can happen. It has to be that you deserve it and it can be real for you. That's what will make your reality.
I love that. So as you share some of these great gems, I'm going to be sharing them in the group chat just so I have these notes to feed back, because that was bomb.com. And I definitely want to go back to you with regard to the expectation part and the research that you've done. But I do want to ask Melissa a question, because you were so transparent when you were introducing yourself, and you said you've come up with some of your own blocks. Let's talk about that. Like,
which one?
So first, let's talk about the blocks that you notice your clients experiencing. What tends to be a common block at that client level?
So there's two main blocks that I see, and the main one is that they don't deserve it, and that they shouldn't be able to receive the things that they're going to receive. I have someone I'm setting up lead pages for, and where, you know, we're going to get her a schedule of webinars. She wants to do one once a month to help build her list, but she didn't want to sell anything, and I was like, why? You're amazing. Like, it doesn't really make any sense for you not to sell anything. So that's a big one. And the other one is just that they need to control everything. But what they end up doing is becoming more of a bottleneck versus helping get things done and out the door. As soon as they're able to let go and believe that things will work out the way that they're supposed to, and other people can do things for them, then things really, really, really seem to fall into place.
That's perfect, because I experienced those myself, the control blocks and the bottlenecks. I can talk about that this afternoon. So Susan, going back to what you said before, right, this like science or this experimentation that you've done and having to match up, how do we make that match up then? In the case of the control blocks, in the case of receiving blocks, how can we make sure that we are in fact going to manifest what we want?
So there are many ways to do that, and that's where things like visualization come into play, EFT, all of those things aren't the manifestation process. They're tools to help with the manifestation process. So, for instance, it's really about, and I have things that I use all the time, and I'll throw other things at it too, like if I really want to change a belief, but it's all about making your subconscious feel safe, first and foremost, that the change is going to happen. Because even though logically and intellectually you're like, I want this, your subconscious wants to stick with what it's already experienced, because its number one job is to keep you alive. So if it feels change or anything different going on, it starts to freak out. And that's when things like self-sabotage start to happen and all that kind of good stuff, unbeknownst to you. So you want to start by showing your subconscious it's okay. And you can do that by either looking back at your own life for times that it has happened or it did happen for you, or look to others. You basically want to prove to yourself that it can happen and it's okay, it's safe that it happened. So you can look to people that you're inspired by if you don't find anything in your own life. And then you can also test it out, like take baby steps. It's kind of like going up against your fear. Even though you might not be afraid to be rich, your subconscious may be, if that makes sense. So I think self-awareness is the number one key to all of this. So if you want more money, I'm just using money because it's something everyone can relate to, but if you want more money and you just aren't getting it and you feel like you're running on a hamster wheel, you want to look at how you think about money. And so if you were a child, because that's when a lot of our beliefs are formed, if you look back to your early childhood, what was the conversation that you heard around money? Were your parents always strapped for money? Was there a not enough feeling in the household? Did you grow up hearing that rich people are assholes, or, you know, what kind of reference do you have around money? Because even though you may not realize it logically and intellectually in front of your face in your conscious mind, they're still at work in your subconscious, and they will prevent you from having what you want. So a great way to do that is to ask yourself, what is the payoff, or what is the advantage of me staying where I am? And because you might think, oh, there is no advantage to being poor, but maybe if you were successful, people in your family might get mad at you, or your sister might be jealous, or there are little things like that that don't seem like a big deal, but that's really what's holding you back. That's really your underlying subconscious belief. Does that make sense?
I love that. Yes, and I want to repeat that. So when you feel like you're stuck, if you will, particularly with I suppose any of these blocks, the love life blocks, the control blocks, the money blocks, one of the things to do is repeat to yourself, what is the payoff, or what is the advantage of me staying where I am? And that really resonates with me because I'm at this like financial plateau. So as an entrepreneur, I have had some visibility blocks, some receiving blocks, and some major money blocks. I've been a solopreneur, and it's been interesting to see these like subtle thoughts that come up in my mind, particularly with regard to my money story. And it was just that I've been working since 9th grade, and so I've always had enough money, and that's been great. Like I always have enough versus, you know, thinking that there's more out there or coming from a more abundant standpoint. So I love that. This opens up an opportunity for both of you to be transparent about like the first block that you ever remember encountering. Melissa, what like made you wake up and say, oh my God, this is a block? Like, it can be so subtle sometimes, but what was your first block?
It's honestly is having kids, like, and that's terrible for me to say because they're my little blocks. Sometimes they just get in the way. But obviously they have to come first, and I just have to come to terms with that. And last summer I was in a place to where I was like really frustrated. I had went to a mastermind, I had joined B school, I had done all the right things, I did all these courses, and I was frustrated because I tried to sell a course like everybody else and it failed like 2 times. So I was just like really unhappy, and I ended up hiring Liz D'Alto to coach me. And she was like, it's so awesome that you can just stay home with your kids and not have to worry about anything. You know, your husband is taking really good care of you guys. And not that I don't contribute, but, you know, he's always been the breadwinner. My role has always been part-time, work part-time, take care of the kids. And so she just said, you know, appreciate the time you have with them and love that your husband wants to take care of you guys. So this summer I'm like much more chill. I mean, I do get blocked sometimes because if there's things I want to do, but they are in the way because they're blocking, you know, whatever I need to do. But I'm at a much happier place, and I'm so thankful that I finally listened to her.
And I think that could be kind of common for a lot of parents. So Susan, is that a receiving block, like, or you know what I mean? Like when it's a parent who loves their children, and Melissa, you rock for sharing that, because I've heard that so many times. I've heard that from both moms and dads. What would you say, Susan, then, if Melissa's your client and saying, "Here's my issue," you know, how do I fix that?
So I would, first of all, I want to point out one thing before everyone forgets and we move on. But what she just said about how Liz said, how nice is it that your husband wants to do that, and you know you have that time. That's what she was doing, was reframing their perception. So by doing that, that is another way to show your subconscious, oh wait, but look at it this way. And that's how you can have shifts a lot faster. So I just wanted to point that out because it's pretty important. If Melissa was my client, I would get to what's underneath, because I'm not really sure what it was about her kids that were blocking her. So I would want to do a little digging, like, is it that really you feel like it's taking away your freedom somehow? Or does that sound right, Melissa?
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I would do some reframing with her to show her or help her see for herself how, similar to what Liz did, how, you know, they really aren't, or there are other ways, or how to add more time, basically proving to yourself that that's not true.
Yeah.
All right, now Susan, not to put you in the hot seat, but I'm going to ask you for a block if you can share it, especially you say you were in fashion and now you're in the law of attraction. I love that. So what was this final block that broke the camel's back, if you will?
Well, it wasn't actually, I didn't discover the block until after I left fashion. But I mean, everyone is just, your whole entire perceived reality is made up of your beliefs. Some of them are empowering, some of them are neutral, and some of them are limiting, and the limiting ones are the ones that cause the block. So you're always going to have more, luckily, as you move further in your life, whatever you want, that's when all your blocks come to the surface. So as I was moving toward this new lifestyle and career, and this was all very new for me, I noticed that when I first started, I was having a lot of trouble because this never feels like work. This doesn't feel like work right now. When I have my clients, it doesn't feel like work. When I'm talking, I could talk about this until I'm blue in the face. Never feels like work. And I had a lot of trouble charging money for it because I had the belief that you had to work hard for money. So in the fashion industry, I did very well for myself financially, but I killed myself. I destroyed my health. The stress was like off the charts, and for a while I was really passionate about it and loved it, but I climbed the ladder fast and I really paid the price with my health. But I was equating that success and that financial wealth with my productivity and how hard I worked. And all of the fun stuff that I was actually paid for, like sketching and looking at magazines and shopping, I would feel guilty, and I didn't know this at the time, but looking back on it, I would feel guilty doing that stuff in the office. So I would create busy work or managerial work for myself in the office, and then I'd still have to get that stuff done. So then I was working nights and weekends and literally made my life a lot harder than it needed to be in order to get what I was going for. So as I started working through that block over the past year and a half, 2 years, I've been consciously showing myself that I can have money effortlessly. And so I would look for ways like, you know, random checks that come in the mail. I would be like, aha, there's a way I just had money effortlessly. Or, you know, little things like that. Someone out of the blue contacting me to be a client when I didn't market it. Like little things of money just coming to me, money just coming to me. And it started to snowball. The more I focused on it, when you focus on something, it grows. So what you appreciate appreciates. And I would just count it. Every time it came in, I would count it, I would count it, I would count it until it like became second nature. And then once I had that shift, it was no longer hard for me to take money from clients.
I love that. And I think it's so common. It's something that comes up quite often for myself, even personally. It took me a very long time. So I love this idea of a mantra, if you will. Mm-hmm. I can have money effortlessly. Is that something that you say to yourself often? Do you recommend that if we're having this sort of money block, that would be something that we could like write up and have maybe as a screensaver on our phone or write as a daily intention in our journal?
Yep. I think whatever that resonates for me. I love the word effortless. I put it in almost every affirmation that I ever say. And I mean, part of that is because I worked so hard that effortless just feels so good to me. And I just want that flow. So I'm constantly saying I receive money effortlessly. Money flows through me and to me effortlessly. And I've said it so much that I do believe it now. But yeah, I had it written down all over the place, popping up on my phone. I actually have a blog post about affirmations because affirmations can be a little tricky sometimes. If you are saying something that you do not believe, you're going to feel a lot of resistance, and you could actually start to attract the opposite. So it's important that you pay attention to how you feel inside when you're saying an affirmation. So if you're saying, I attract money effortlessly, but really you're panicked, say, I'm willing or I'm open to attracting money effortlessly, and it helps ease that a little bit. And then that's where you could use gratitude to break the resistance even more.
This is why we're doing this Google Hangout. I appreciate that because they say, like, the devil's in the details. I'm like, the abundance is in the details. The shift is in the details. So just to repeat that, pay attention to how you feel. This is something that I think is very applicable, you know, across the board with regard to a lot of things. A lot of times we're not trusting our gut or inner guidance, if you will. And I also loved how you were saying you can have effortlessly that word in all of your intentions. So thank you.
Yes.
Melissa,
Okay.
let's go back to, I know Julian had a question on a prior chat that we did with regard to being able to let go of control of things, or how to like work through what you should be doing versus what you shouldn't be doing. So for those clients that come to you and they hire you and you kind of get in that back and forth, particularly with the control block, what's the first step or tip that you provide to them?
You hired me. Let me do it for you. I mean, because in reality, they know that they're the bottleneck, but knowing you have a problem and actually fixing it is two different things. So I just am really, really good at following up and like making sure that no detail is missed, whether that's being at the big picture level or like at the little level. So if it means that they can call me whenever they need to, okay. If that means that they text me at 2 in the morning, okay. We just do what we need to get it done.
What do you think they're mostly afraid of when they contact you?
I think they're afraid that something won't happen because it's very new for them, or if maybe it's not that I'm going to screw it up, but that they had a team prior that did it. So they're afraid of it failing.
I mean, that's very true. And for somebody who maybe hasn't ever had a team that's failed and is new to this, how do you ease them? How do you effortlessly ease them into the process of letting go of control?
I'm just really, really detailed with what's going on. So I just talk them through that and listen. And, you know, my husband was on the phone with me when I was talking, or he was in the car with me one time when I was talking on the phone to a customer. He was like, man, how do you do that? I said, you just have to let them talk because you have to make them feel better. Like, that's your job. Once they say it, and then once I'm really good at making people feel better about what's going on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You're making your subconscious feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah, she says it in like the fancy words.
No.
No, it's great. It's important to know that that's what it is, making the subconscious feel safe. So I know we had a question come in from somebody who couldn't be on the line, and I figured it'd be worthwhile to have us, you know, review this question and answer it, and then I'd love to get maybe Julian and Brian and anybody else who's on the line's input too. This is interactive. So the question came in, and it specifically was, I've been down this internet marketing rabbit hole for years, trying to create an online business, taking course after course. This morning, looking at my debt, which is in parentheses investment in courses, I sheepishly admit for a moment that I feel like a gambling addict. That's the best way to describe it. I keep thinking this will be the last piece of the puzzle, then I can do X, Y, Z. My block is putting all of the pieces of the puzzle together to finally get a true business that I can collect an income from. Melissa, I'm gonna start with you in tackling that question, especially because you support a lot of people who have very lucrative, successful online businesses. What would you say? Again, I've been down this internet marketing rabbit hole for years trying to create an online business.
I would say first you have to identify what the problem is of who you're trying to help, and then do whatever it takes to just go get them, and realize that learn to accept right away whether or not they're for you, because not every customer was meant to work with you. I'm not meant to go to Walmart. I'm meant to go to Target. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that that's like one of the most important things that you can ever do, is just really get out there and get started, whether or not you feel ready.
Now, I think another thing as well is, you know, there's a lot of people who buy a lot of courses. There's great information. We want to know how to market ourselves on YouTube. We want to know how to make money from Facebook ads. We want to know how to do email marketing really well. And I had this rule when I first signed up for Marie Forleo's B School, which is a $2,000 program. And I was like, I'm going to do one program a year. One program a year, and if I can't pay for it in cash or pay for it in full, then I'm not going to do it, because I know that I have to have, I look at my business like a pie, or life in general like a pie. I have to have a portion towards investing in myself and learning. I have to have a portion in servicing my clients. I have to have a portion in balancing my life, and I have to have a portion in balancing my life, I mean like self-care. And then really I separate like the checking in with the dreams part a little bit different than the self-care piece, because the self-care is really the nutrition, exercise, the spirituality component. That dreaming part I feel like is what often gets kind of like shoved down very, very, very bottom and denied. Susan, what's your take on this question? This is a question that you hear often, so how do you answer it?
Yeah, so a lot of my clients actually deal with this, and what you just said about dreaming gets pushed down to the bottom, that's very true. So when someone's struggling with this, I take them back to that first and have them, like I was saying before, and I don't know if it has to do with our culture or if it's something else, but we tend to, as Americans, jump right into doing. We want to do, and we don't have the clarity up front, and it makes the doing very difficult. So I think that lack of clarity comes from one of two places. Either you didn't take the time to let yourself dream and really figure out what you really, really wanted. So how you want your life, and you don't even have to know what your business is yet, but how do you want your life to look? How do you want your life to feel? Then that is your filter. That's what you use to make your other decisions around. So then at that point, if you do know that, then there's a confidence piece. So there's something going on with your beliefs, because you can buy all of the courses in the world, but if you don't believe that you can receive money for your services, or that your services are valuable, or that you're qualified to start before you're ready, like what Melissa was saying, it doesn't matter. You're going to feel stuck and paralyzed and not know why. And a lot of the I'm not qualified enough thing is something that comes up a lot. And it's something that I even struggled with in the very beginning. Like, who am I to think? Who am I is like the prefix to so many questions of the people that I work with. But who am I to think that I can help them with X, Y, Z? You know, because you never feel like you know it all or enough. You're never going to know it all. But I always think that you can teach from where you are. And part of learning is through the experience of teaching people. So it's about making yourself feel safe and just taking teeny tiny baby steps to get yourself out there and doing it, because that is how you build the confidence piece.
I agree. There's a quote that I often heard in my last mastermind that I was in, which is, you teach what you need to know, or you teach what you need to learn, and you took the words right out of my mouth. The only other part I want to add to this, coming from a business and like marketing background, a lot of times people say, okay, I want to do something that's going to make money. So I'm like, wait a second, before we even talk about the money piece, what is it that you really genuinely like doing? Now, as I shared earlier, I love singing and dancing, but I'm not doing that for a living. But because I was able to identify that singing and dancing makes me feel creative and it gives me a lot of freedom, through trial and error in working at different companies, in offering different services, I was able to finally find something that allowed me to feel that creativity and freedom. So Danielle Laporte calls these like core desired feelings. The same core desired feelings that you would apply to yourself at a personal level, I would say apply those core desired feelings to what you want to get from your job. And just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean you can necessarily monetize it. Just because you can monetize something doesn't mean you're passionate about it. So from a practical business standpoint, really identify what you're passionate about, what that core desired feeling is, and then look for a business that will allow you to generate revenue and make money from that. And the money piece, I think, goes back to this money block that we know is very common for all entrepreneurs, no matter how many years you've been an entrepreneur, no matter how much education you have. And we've got this challenge in B School, which is like 3 weeks to make 8K. We have to do the math sometimes too. Mm-hmm. So let's say you give yourself a money challenge, right? And I was telling one of the girls, if you had 3 weeks to make $8,000, chunk it down into what that amount comes out to per week, and then figure out how many customers, if your rate is $150 an hour, if you're selling a $47 fitness class. We have to really chunk things down and make it simple, but that mathematical piece is just as important as the passion piece, is just as important as the skill set piece. They all work together.
Cool.
All
I
right.
love it.
With that said, Julian, Brian, if you're still with us, anybody who's viewing, we would like to take time to answer your questions. Feel free to fire away. Julian, do you have a question for us?
Well, I kind of wanted to like jump in on that question that she
Awesome.
had, which
Okay.
was, you know, and I wrote an article on that on LinkedIn, and it pretty much talked about like neediness, right? To avoid the neediness, like I need this, I need that before I get, you know, I get started. And I think that's like one of the big things for the entrepreneurs, the people that want to start a business, but never commit, you know, to be vulnerable, be out there, and be rejected, right? That's the first thing I thought about. I was like, hey, you don't need all the stuff that you think you need. You don't need an expensive website to get going. You just need to find a customer.
Yeah.
Right? Find a customer is someone that you can answer a need, and then at that point, you're going to start to see if what you assume, you know, was the problem might be something else. And then you pivot, and you end up somewhere totally different with a totally different, you know, customer segment, totally different person. But then you pivot, change, adjust, and repeat. So that's the only thing I wanted to say.
Julian, I want to just share with the group how you were able to do that. So Julian and his wife have a dance studio in Texas, right outside of Houston, correct, Julian?
Correct.
All right. So I'll let you tell the story, but it's the story where you guys came up with, I believe it was the bar classes first, or you were offering.
Yeah.
Yes. So tell us what you were doing and what happened and how you pivoted, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, we're about to pivot again. So pretty much like, you know, after 2 years, you know, of kind of like starting a studio somewhere else as a dance director, exactly December 31st, so the end of the year, she gets told, hey, we don't really need you anymore, or we're going to decrease your hours so much that you're going to have to kind of, you know, move away. And the funny thing is, like 3 weeks before that, we had bought our first home. So that means that, you know, we didn't have any more money in savings. And then 2 weeks after that, we are lost like a baby that we're expecting. So we started the new year pretty much with just like broken. And then we started just like adjusting, seeing what we're going to do. Then January 13th, we started, you know, planning for the studio pretty much with zero money in the bank. Pretty much, right? So you're talking about just visualizing, you know, hey, I can still do it. You know, I either put limit on myself or accept limitations from others, and therefore we're not going to do either one of those. We're going to think that we can still get it going. You know, things start to be together because we're just visualizing a studio, a good studio, not an expensive studio that could be a good location. So March 8th we incorporated. April 4th we signed the lease. That was a studio that was 10 minutes from the house, brand new, just starting opening, so we were getting tenant improvement that was much higher than what you would ever get, 3 times the amount that they were initially going to give. Then we were doing dance, and I was going to do boot camp. 2 months in August, there's a CrossFit that moved next door, and we cannot market boot camp anymore because they're protected for fitness. So now our name is Move Dance and Fitness. So we have to find, another way to kind of just, you know, have the fitness component. So we said, hey, what about bar fitness? Without really knowing a whole lot about bar fitness at that time. Then we started just learning, launched a quick little Groupon campaign, and ever since then it became the second portion of our business. We're the first one to do bar fitness in our area. And now, actually, this week, I got an email from a franchise, Pure Bar, that is moving in, I think 15 minutes from where we are, to do bar fitness. So now our business is about to pivot again as far as like how we're going to position our bar fitness. So that's kind of you know, how we did it.
But I love that example because at the beginning when you opened this Move Dance Fitness, initially you thought we're going to provide dance classes and we're going to have a gym component for the parents who want to work out, then we'll have a daycare component for the kids. And it's like sometimes you get a lot of clarity, to Susan's point, you get clarity through, I don't call it trial and error, I call it trial and experience. So thank you so much for sharing that because I think that will help a lot of people you're going to learn. You know what I mean? It's like you just get on the road, and you might find a detour when you're on the road, but you have to get on the road. So I really appreciate that.
That's exactly based on what you said last time. I totally agree with it. As far as the, reduce your consuming and start producing, because I think especially in the United States is very. I'm from Europe, so I'm sorry if I say it here in the United States. the thing is that a lot of people consume so much content, so much webinars and classes and things like that, but there's not that many people that start producing as far as like writing blogs or just going out and trying to teach others what they've just learned, And I think like that's huge. That's one thing that I started doing this year, which is just reducing how much I'm consuming and trying to produce a little bit more, because you're always at a higher level than someone else. So you can always teach it to somebody else. So I just want to say that real quick before I forget.
I appreciate it, and I'm going to tweet it and tag you. It's definitely a tweetable, and I've got a ton of tweetables from both Melissa and Susan. So on the producing note, Susan, how can people get access to your work and what you do with the Law of Attraction?
Through my website, www.susanf, as in Ferraro.com. And I have all kinds of good stuff on there. And if you sign up, you'll get my guide, 6 Steps to Getting What You Want. And it's basically the process that I've used and kind of perfected for myself. It's pretty cool.
I just put that in the chat box, and I love that. Melissa, how about with you?
To get in touch with me, you can check me out on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Melissa Burkheimer, or you can go to my website at melissaburkheimer.com.
I want to make sure I spelled that correctly, and I'll share this with everybody. All right. I win the spelling bee, the last name spelling bee. Do we have any other questions from people who are on the line? I think we can take, we started a little late, so ladies, if it's okay with you, maybe we could take 1 or 2 questions. You can either put them in the chat box or ask away. Brian, no names. Do you have a question, Brian, or no? You're going to chat, put in the chat box? Okay. Brian is a great person to know, by the way, for everybody who's watching this. Both Brian and Julian, like attracts like, everybody that's on here. You hit the snooze button 34 times every morning. So do you feel like you have an energy block? Is that what you're asking? Is there an energy block that you're experiencing, or a passion block for what you're doing?
Are you staying up too late?
You don't know what kind of block it is. So can I tell both Susan and Melissa and Julian what you're experiencing right now? Brian is in a transition, our favorite word. So Brian used to work for a New York Times bestselling author. He is quite the networker and connector himself, and he was doing business development. Then he worked for a fashion blog, a kids fashion blog, for probably a year or so, and was tasked with influencer identification and growing the community, finding brands to feature on the blog. And right now, he is currently looking for his next thing. So he has this program called Mentor Matchmaker, and he's really passionate about connecting people who are in college with professional mentors to help people get on the right track, if you will. But he's also contemplating going to Dubai and potentially starting an endeavor there. He just got back from traveling. So he's in a little bit of a holding pattern right now, if I interpret that correctly. Right, Brian? You can give us a thumbs up or type in the chat box to clarify.
Yeah, I mean, that's about right. I have a lot on my plate, so I'm definitely not bored. And I'm not, maybe I'm a little overwhelmed.
Ah, okay. So what is someone to do when they have an overwhelm block? Susan, and then Melissa, I'm going to have you tackle that too, because I think you'll have some good insight for us, Melissa.
Okay, baby steps. Actually, first get very clear on the intention behind all of the things that are on your plate. And if there's nothing that you really, intention meaning why you want to do it, because if it doesn't line up with your big overarching vision for your life, it needs to go. And then what you have left, you want to break those down into super duper teeny tiny baby steps. Even if you're like, okay, what's one thing I can do in the next 15 minutes or the next 5 minutes that takes me closer to this? And it can be like send email. It doesn't have to be. The bigger you make it, like create a website is very overwhelming. That would make me hit the snooze button too. So you want to break it down into everything that goes in. Take the time to break it down. It might take you a week to break all of your projects down, but it's so worth it. And then you can just check them off one by one. But if you're, do you have to wake up for something? I'm just curious about this.
No, because I
You have
work
to wake
at
up. You what?
I work at home, so unless I have like a phone call or a meeting scheduled for like 9 a.m., I'm always hitting the snooze button.
But who says that you have to get up at 9 a.m. for work?
I do.
Because, I mean, you can, if you're your boss and no one's depending on you, you can change that too, and it'll alleviate some of that pressure.
That's a very valid point, because I feel like that myself. Like, if I'm not up by, 7:30 at the latest, I'm like, my whole morning is going to get out of control. So that's something very valid to bring up. And the other thing I just wanted to reinforce, not only for Brian, but for everybody, this was beautiful. When you have that overwhelm block, get very clear with regard to why things are on your plate. And if those things don't match up with your big why, they've got to go. And that can be scary. So I'm going to ask a question after we have Melissa weigh in on this. When you're afraid of letting go, how you can step into that fear. And I think we'll probably end with that. So Melissa, as someone who's managing a business and kids and a marriage and all that, what would be your answer and suggestion for someone who's dealing with an overwhelm block?
You just have to do it. I like every night before I go to bed, on the days I'm really productive, the night before I go to bed, I just take the notes section on my iPhone and write a list of everything, because I'm not worrying about it and I'm not sleeping. So maybe one thing you could do is change your alarm. Give yourself an extra 30 minutes to sleep, and then you'll only hit the snooze button 16 times. And then the following week, see how it feels. And just like that little thing, that little step in itself will help you be motivated. If you need music, if you need to go for a run, just do whatever you can that makes you feel good, and then you'll be motivated.
Yeah, it's like you're rebelling against yourself.
Oh, I hit the snooze button every day too. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
But yeah, not 34 times, but yeah, I mean, give yourself an extra hour or whatever it means to sleep, because I think sleep's really important.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. I'm kind of like, like Melissa, right? I'm a dad. I'm a husband. Right? I have 2 little kids. Work full time. Have the business on the side. Teach part time. So I have a lot of stuff as well. But one of the big thing, it's easy to get overwhelmed, especially whenever you're in business with your wife. It's one of those is really hard to kind of draw the line between house and business and all that kind of stuff. But one of the big thing I found out is your physiology, like your body. If you get that good workout, which for me I know is so important, and sometimes I don't want to do it, but I know that makes the difference between me being productive and clear about what I need to do and getting my clarity, because, working out just allows you to get more energy, endorphin, and, all that stuff. Breathe better, your posture, because your muscles are more tensed up. And when you're like this, you feel like you can do a lot more than when you just, right, going like that, like you don't want to wake up, right? And also just the cranking up just motivational stuff, motivational messages whenever you feel kind of down, especially when you talk about time. Right? Like if you're talking about just like think of time, it's like one of the most valuable things. That's why rich people have airplanes, because they know, hey, if it will take me just 30 minutes to get from here to here, and I have to spend $1 million a year for that versus the 4 hours drive, I'm gonna spend that, because they know that 3 hours can never, you know what I mean, be gained back. You can't get money back faster, but you can't get time back, right? So at that point, you're like, you know what? Hey, we all have 24 hours. Maybe I'm gonna wake up like at 6, get that workout in, and then now I feel more empowered, energized to tackle what it is that I really want to do. So that was my my thing.
All right, so before we wrap this up, Julian, I need you to point to your sign, because I love that you have that in the background.
Like it?
Yes,
Also,
the only
like
limit
it.
you have is the one you set on yourself. I think that is very appropriate for today's
Yeah, and you
call.
see, and the key to success is right here too. I don't know if you can see it. Key to success is right there.
Oh, I love it. Perfect. Okay, so to close us up, Susan,
Yeah.
we talked about intention, affirmation, making sure you feel, you know, what would you say? Making sure, checking in with how you feel, because I was about to say making sure you feel appropriate, but being aware of how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the intention that we had with the effortless, everything is coming effortlessly to me. Now that we've talked about time, which is something I know we all want more of, let's close with an intention for helping us set the proper vibration with regard to our time.
I have all the time I need to accomplish everything I want and then some.
Perfect. And you know what? That is the perfect way to wrap up something on the very last day of August. I have all the time I need to, what was it? I'm typing it in the box.
Accomplish everything I want and then some.
I want.
That was one of my
and then
old
some.
affirmations.
That's going to be a tweetable that I'm crediting to you, girl. I love it. Oh, and Brian's on it. Yep. Melissa, let's have you help us seal this. Let's all think together as a group. All right. And on that note, then I'm going to end the hangout. So here we go on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I have all the time to
accomplish everything I want, and then some.
And then some.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is how we do Google Hangouts, Jacqueline Mullen Media style. You roll with the punches. You have some great people show up. Melissa, Susan, thank you so much for your time and your expertise today.
Thank you.
This is going to be on YouTube, so like I said, I'm going to have links with regard to how you can contact both of these ladies, have both of these ladies support you on your entrepreneurial or professional journey. Julian and Brian, thank you for being amazing friends and supports to me. And I really appreciate it. And on that note, we will try to do these Google Hangouts at least once a month, if Google Hangouts will permit. They are a little finicky. So I'm Jacqueline Mullen signing off. You can catch up with me at facebook.com/Jacqueline Mullen Media. Have a kick-ass August, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.